Hello and welcome to the 1/106th of a second photography podcast. This is an interesting podcast because it's formed a lot from my opinion, what I'm going to talk about. I don't really see why people do it to the extent that they do it, but I do understand the motivation for doing it. What an interesting introduction. I have children, 2 of them actually. One isn't old enough to start doing things, but with the eldest child, we will go to sort of rehearsals, recitals, productions and things. The first time we went, it wasn't a production, it was like party organised by a club that they attend, and it was a Christmas party and they got to sit on Santa's lap and there was food and stuff, and it was really nice. And you see the same parents at all these things you go to. So you take your child to one thing, then you take them to another thing, and then they've got that on a Friday and they go to this on a Tuesday, and then they might move up classes, and you often see the same people. You don't know them, but you recognise the same parents because they go to the same schools, the same clubs, the same extracurricular clubs, all these things, and you notice them. And we went to this one club and my wife said to me, "Oh, bring your camera so we can get some photos." And this is where I understand why people do it. We, myself and my wife, don't want to miss a moment, and we particularly didn't with our first child. I completely understand that. We don't want to miss a moment, and no parent wants to miss a moment. You'd hate to go home and think, "Oh, I wish I took a picture of that," or "I wish I took a good picture of that." So I brought along my Micro Four Thirds camera, and I just put a single lens on, which was a 45mm, which gives an equivalent of 90mm focal length. I thought that'll be fine. I won't be right in the midst of things. I'll be taking images or video from afar, so 90mm is a good bet. It's a prime, it was a 1.8 lens, so it gave me good low light capabilities. And I got some pictures, and you know what? We've not used them. We've not really done anything with those pictures. And I spotted someone I'd seen before, parent I'd seen before. But this time I sort of thought in my mind, oh, look at their equipment. So they had with them a professional Canon DSLR, and that had on a 70-200 L lens, a very good lens, and they had a flash on top of their Canon camera. And because they had so much kit, they had a backpack with them with other things in, I guess. And I was there feeling like I was in the middle because I had my Micro Four Thirds camera, which was nice and small, didn't get in the way. I didn't need a backpack for it. It was just slung over my shoulder. At the other end, you've got people with smartphones, and at the other end, you've got people with this professional kit. Don't get me wrong. Maybe there was a bit of kit envy there, so I thought, oh, I'd like that, but I'm not prepared to pay for it. I don't have a 70-200. I generally have primes, and I certainly don't have those type of lenses for Canon gear. I have the 5D Mark I, which I think you could say was professional, but I don't think you could class it as professional now. So most people hold up their smartphones and they take pictures or images, and I'm going to come back to the chap with the professional stuff later. We went to a play and it was an hour. An awful lot of other parents held up their smartphones from the back of the room for an hour in portrait orientation. So not landscape orientation, but portrait orientation for the whole thing. And you see that at concerts, holding up phones and stuff. And I understand child's play to capture a moment, particularly when your child's singing or dancing. It's rude if your flash goes off or whatever, but we don't really see that anymore because everyone does it on a smartphone. I remember seeing at the London Olympics on 2012, people holding up their smartphone at the back of the stadium. Probably not going to capture anything useful, but there we are. But it's almost like people forget why they've gone there and are so keen on capturing something that they'll hold a phone up for an hour and they'll zoom in digitally. And the thing is, they're probably not going to get anything good. They're probably not going to use the footage from the whole thing. I really don't understand why people do that. So we've talked about our 2 extremes: professional kit for your child's plays, smartphones for your child's plays, and really none of them are suitable. Like I've said, the smartphone, it'll get a picture, but it's quite a wide angle lens. It's not a high megapixel, you can't really crop in too much. It's not going to be good indoors. It's not what a phone is designed for, but everyone seems to get them out and then they get in the way of people viewing stuff. And again, I don't really think the professional stuff, maybe it's overkill if that's the only camera you've got. It almost felt like the casual observer felt this was too much. This was going over the top. I'm sure he got some lovely images, and I'm sure he got some nice out of focus areas in the background. But I was quite happy just to use my Micro Four Thirds. I've got some good shots. Again, like I said, we never use them. We haven't done anything with them. We've got lots and lots. Having photography gear and knowing what to do and having nice prime lenses. We have some really nice pictures of my oldest child. We don't actually have any particularly very many pictures of my youngest child, simply because when we just had one child, there was a parent to look after the child and there was a parent, me, to take pictures of the child. Now that we've both sort of got one to look after, or two parents to look after two children, it's more difficult to take good pictures. So we don't really have that many pictures of my second child. I've got some amazing pictures of my first child that look really good and sort of a classic, and I put them up on the wall. These pictures of this sort of thing at the club didn't do anything. Didn't do anything with them. I think we looked at them when we got home, and oh, that's nice, yeah. Then we had a school thing where my daughter's going to play, and again, I'd come from work, so I ended up at the back, but I'd taken the same setup again, and actually I was standing at the back. There were loads of phones being held up for the whole thing, which annoyed me. In fact, the whole thing annoys me, whether it be at a children's concert or go and see Coldplay or a big band holding your phone up. You don't go to hold a phone up, you go to watch it, or you go to enjoy it or to experience it. To be wasting your time holding a phone up for footage you're never going to use or look at again. Or you might take a picture, say, oh, look at me, I'm here, but I'm not going to film. You shouldn't film the whole thing. You should enjoy it and jump up and down or whatever you do at a concert. But I was stood at the back and I used the same setup, so I've got an equivalent of a 90mm lens on an interchangeable lens camera. So it looked like the shots had been taken with a wide angle lens because I was so far back. But I got good shots and I had good shutter speeds, and that's the thing with a better camera. You can capture more light, therefore you can have a faster shutter speed. Whereas on a phone, you can't have a high shutter speed because you can't capture as much light. So I could shoot at 125th of a second. I didn't go any faster than that because I'd have to raise my ISO further than I wanted to. But with a phone, you'd probably be shooting at a 25th of a second or 15th of a second, which for capturing a child attempting to stand still or moving about, you're going to get a very blurry image. People next to me or just in front of me who were at the back with me are going to get no decent images off your phone. You might as well sit there and enjoy it with your eyes. You're not going to really capture anything decent. If you disagree and think you could capture a good image, or you have captured a good image from the back of a child's concert with a smartphone, leave a comment, because I would be interested to know if there's an exception to what I'm saying. I don't think there is, but that's just me. So again, we got what looked like wide angle images. They were good. They weren't overloaded with noise. They weren't blurry. And again, we didn't do anything with them. Didn't put them up on the wall. Didn't share them with anyone. We had a look at them, and then they stayed on a memory card or might have got backed up to a computer. We weren't going to stick them on Facebook, even if they were the most amazing images, because it was our child and other people's children. And the school had quite rightly said, by all means take pictures, but please don't go sharing them because you'll have pictures of other people's children in. And quite agree. They weren't really that memorable. We didn't really need them. They didn't tell us anything. It's the sort of thing you might put in a family photo album. But we have so many better pictures to put in a family photo album. That means that those pictures don't make it in. And we do family photo albums, particularly when the children were younger. We've got sort of 8 photo albums, and occasionally I make a few more. But I get nice pictures and I make them into a book through a website business that I know does a very good job because we've always used them. So we get nice photo albums, but yeah, these pictures didn't make the photo album because they weren't the best. So they just sort of sit in digital mediocrity. They're not good enough for anything. I wouldn't put it on Facebook because of the privacy concerns, but also it didn't really show anything. They weren't brilliant. My child wasn't the star of the show. Didn't have that spotlight coming down on them. It wasn't like you see on TV. They were just part of a group singing and doing a few moves. However, saying that, I wouldn't want to miss it. I wouldn't want to go unprepared and not have something to capture that image. So the most recent one we went to, my wife said, can you bring a camera? I said, of course I'll bring a camera. And it really made me think, was I gonna be smartphone person? Was I going to be professional DSLR camera dad? And was I going to enjoy it? So I took my RX100 Mark I because it has an equivalent of a 24-70 zoom. It does really well in low light, and you know what, I can put it in my pocket. And one of the things with capturing your children is you need an incredibly short period from getting your camera out, turning it on, focusing it, taking the image. quite often you've done some of those things and the moment is missed. With the RX100, while we're waiting for it to start, these things never start on time. I put in my camera settings. I think I went for ISO of 800. I put it on the lowest aperture, and I think I reduced my exposure compensation ever so slightly to get the highest shutter speed. I put it in aperture priority, and that was that. And then I would just have it on but not use it, and then when the moment came, I'd take a few snaps. And it meant as well, because I could zoom, I didn't have to stand up or get in anyone's way, and I got a seat close down the front, so I wasn't at the back this time. And again, I got better images than I would have with my smartphone. When we got up to go, I saw people at the back holding up their smartphones with tired arms. But actually, taking a small, capable camera meant I did get some good images. I didn't have to rely on my smartphone. I didn't have to annoy everyone by standing up or holding my smartphone up in the air. I was able to zoom through gaps in people and get some good images. But most of all, I was able to enjoy it. And at the end, we got to pick up my child, and my wife took some images with her phone. I scoffed at her and I took some with my camera. And the difference was night and day. My child looked washed out and ill on my wife's phone, and grainy and horrible and muddy, and she looked normal on the pictures I took. But again, they were okay pictures technically. They weren't blurry or anything. There wasn't too much grain, but we didn't use them. We had to look at them when we got home. Didn't use them, didn't stick them on a family card. They're not going to go in the album, but they're there if we want them. And as a parent, that's what you worry about, not having those things there. I remember looking back when I was a child through family albums, just random photos. And in those days, I was a child of the film era. So you would take a picture in the film era and you had no idea what it turned out like. And you went and got them developed. And because you got them developed, you got a print. You had that image printed. You would stick it in a family album. And when you look back at it 10 years later, 20 years later, it was quite interesting. Even if it was the most mundane thing, it was still quite good to look at. Those photos that you would now look at them and delete, or you wouldn't even think anything of, they were quite nice to have some time ago, before you could take 100 images without any consequence. Before, in the film time, was, well, you'd already paid for it. You had a limited number of shots you could take without having to change film canister. You'd already paid for it. You'd already got it developed. You had it. You wouldn't throw it away because you'd invested everything to get it, even if it was a mediocre, non-special image. Things are different in the digital age. If I do a photography shoot for me, of a person, I'll maybe take 4 images that are the best and I'll use those images, but I've probably taken 100 images to get those 4. That would be unreasonable in film. You just wouldn't do that. So what do I recommend? If you are thinking of going to an event, maybe a sporting event, a child's event, a concert, I would always advocate taking a small, capable camera if you have it. I'm not saying go out and buy the new Sony RX100 for your child's Christmas concert. I'm saying don't laden yourself down with kits because you won't enjoy it. Everyone will look at you, which will make you really self-conscious. You won't enjoy it. Maybe if your child is the star of the show, it's a different matter. But when they're very young, I don't think it matters. So if you want to record video of, say, a concert, probably the best item to use is a camcorder. You've got a really long zoom. You can hold it in one hand. They generally come with optical stabilization to give a smooth image. They've got quite good microphones on the front that are directional, and they're okay in low light. So they're probably going to be cheaper than buying a DSLR and a long zoom lens, and they're certainly going to be more portable and easier to use for the average person. But I do understand that camcorders are maybe not trendy anymore and maybe not sold as much as they used to be, and have generally been replaced by cameras and mobile phones. But I would say don't discount a camcorder for this sort of thing. That can be a really good thing, particularly if you want a video for the whole hour of the thing. You're going to get a much better quality, a much better result from a camcorder holding it in your hand than you are with a mobile phone holding it in portrait mode. key thing about these sort of things is your child sees you're there, you see what your child does, and there's no pressure. I think maybe taking the professional DSLR kit or mirrorless might add a bit of pressure to your child. The lighting's always terrible anyway, so you're never going to get fantastic images. But I do really appreciate that no one wants to miss those images. I'd always use a smartphone as the last resort, really. And I suppose for most people, the smartphone is their last resort because they maybe didn't think ahead, or they maybe don't have a camera anymore. They just use their smartphone. So their only resort by default is their last resort. I think it's a bit of a strange episode this week because it is just talking about my feelings about taking pictures of your children and what is the happy medium. And I do think the happy medium is a small compact camera, maybe a small DSLR. What I'm saying is don't go mad and don't miss that one golden opportunity that may come along because you brought a smartphone and it's not good. I know some people have the latest Google Pixel one and it'll have a huge ridiculous megapixel count and you can crop in and it will take 7 images and stitch them together. Fine, I appreciate smartphone technology has moved on considerably, but they still never beat a real camera with an optical zoom, an image stabilization and a faster shutter speed. They'll never beat a real camera. But do let me know what you think. Don't forget, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes. It would just help the show grow a bit, and I really like to see the show grow a little bit more. I have been really impressed with how much the show's grown, but like anyone, I'd always like it to grow a bit more. And don't forget to check the show out on social media, and you can see all that in the description below. Thank you, and keep up your photography.